I don't know. I've been taking care of everybody else.
In between is the realm of the dark feminine.
But my why was that I know that if I take care of them, that they will love me.
This life is so short, and it should not feel like a chore.
In this state of like, I don't know what I want. Well, we have to get down to that. We have to work that out. And how do we work that out? Well, you have to do small things.
There was a point when we were like, it's not serving me. And I don't think that enough of us give ourselves the space and the capacity to recognize and to say, this is no longer serving me.
Welcome to Mindfully Sovereign, the podcast that invites you to reclaim your feminine self-authority and unleash the abundance within. My name is Sapha, I am your host, and I'm here to help guide you past your limiting beliefs and into the heart of your unwavering and undeniable power. This podcast is all about reclaiming your feminine self-authority, learning the art of self-seduction, and awakening your inner goddess so that you can become an aligned match to your most abundant life yet. So grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and get ready to become mindfully sovereign.
Hey everybody, welcome back and happy Monday. I have a super special guest for everyone today. I love her. Her name is Carole. She's amazing. And I'm just going to let her introduce herself. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what lights you up, all the things.
Amazing. Thank you, Sapha. It's so nice to be here. I'm very excited. And as I said, I'm usually not in the hot seat. I'm usually interviewing the hot seat. So this is very fun. My name is Carole Podell. As you know, I am a podcast host of a show called She Takes the Lead. And I'm a storyteller and I'm a life transition strategist. So basically what I do is women who are in that big life change, whether that's after maybe a divorce or you're going back to work after being a stay-at-home mom, or you really like, I'm not happy in my career and I want to change. I help with the transition. I'm not a career coach. That's not my area. I help with the transitions and reframing what these things look like, because I tend to think that we all have a very, very specific idea of what we want to do, who we are, how we need to get there, and, when and where. And it's just a lie. My background, I've had many careers. So I was a singer when I was a professional singer when I started at 13, I guess. And I went to high school to the Fame School for voice, for music. And then, I studied theater and I was an actress in my 20s, thank you, and a singer. And then kind of evolved, and part of it just evolved out of luck and nepotism, because my parents were in the business. But I started working at ABC News as a producer and associate director. So I worked there for, on and off for 15 years, actually, at Good Morning America. And then like a large chunk of it was in a department called special events. So that's news emergencies. So it's very much like the stage where it's like, you're really in the moment and you're really like having to, react to what's happening as it's happening, because you're unfolding a story that you don't know about on television and trying to narrate it for others to understand. And then, I was married. I was in the same relationship, since I was 20, I believe, 21. And we'd been together for a really long time. And we finally got married after 7 years or something. And then we were together and then we started trying to have a baby, and I wasn't getting pregnant and things were getting stressful in life, as they do. And, we had a lot of sort of changes, and eventually we basically, I wasn't getting pregnant, but ultimately he came to me. Our marriage was ending. Like this wasn't the nail in the coffin. This was the catalyst to split. But he came to me and said, and I don't want to have children. Like, it was part of our conversation. And I don't want to have a baby. I don't want to have children. And I said, okay. And he was like, okay, what? I was like, okay, you can go. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is my thing. Like, that I wanted one. It never occurred to me in my entire life. I was never one of those girls that was wearing her wedding dress, when she was a kid. I was not like imagining myself as a mommy. I'm very close with my family. We're not a big family, but it was always assumed that was part of what I want. And I'm an only child. I wanted a big family, or I guess I wanted a big family. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it was all just assumed. Like, there was
Right.
no kind of consciousness around it other than I knew that I wanted it. But I didn't really know what it looked like for me. I just knew what it looked like what a family looked like. And that seemed to be, yeah, that kind of thing, that image is what I wanted. Anyway, he said he didn't want it. And we split. And it was very, very hard because he was, it's when you're, we were children. It was my entire adult life up until that point was with this person, and was really, I'm a caretaker, and I was pursuing creative career, as was he. And, he might argue differently, but I really was doing it for us. Like, I was really doing everything as a team. And I think largely that was, in some ways, a protection. So I didn't actually have to get out into the world. And then some of that was, and I think he liked that I could help him, and support him. But really, it was also like, I am living through him, and I've always considered myself a feminist. I've always been like pretty independent and pretty verbose and pretty outspoken. But the truth is that I was in that kind of traditional perspective that that my husband is the one that's going to ultimately bring home the bacon and, create our external life. And so that my support, the real focus needed to be on getting that up and running. And when we split, I was like, fuck, like, I was devastated. He was my first love, but really, I had never dated. I was working at Good Morning America shortly thereafter, and like going to work at midnight is not that easy when you're getting
Right.
off a date. You're like, I
Mhm.
literally Saturday night I would go on a date, and like he would drop me at work, and
Yeah.
I would go to work until 9 a.m. And then I would go to bed. Like, nothing was supporting my life all of a sudden. And this universe that I had spent so much time, what I thought was consciously creating, literally disintegrated before my eyes, and nothing supported what my life looked like at that moment. And I crumbled like one does. And I had always been a person who held everything close to my chest. I've had great friends over the years. Like I said, I'm an only child, so I have some friends that I would consider sisters, but I never talked to them about my relationships.
Right.
I was protecting
Right.
him, or really protecting me from having to say, like, I'm not perfect.
Mhm.
This isn't a
Mhm.
perfect environment, the perfect girl thing, which I never thought was a
Yeah.
thing for me. Right. And I couldn't say it anymore because my life was just off the charts, like not where I needed it to be. And my emotions were so beyond what I could deal with that I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't hold it together on the outside anymore. And that's really when everything just opened up. My friends, I had some friends that really came to my rescue, and I really just told them the truth. Like, just fuck it, no holds barred, honestly told them the truth. And it was so freeing. And it started me down this path of having that perspective on life. So when I got divorced, I had so many people coming to me saying, "Oh, I was divorced, but my kid doesn't know," or, "Oh, I was divorced, but I don't want anybody to know,"
Yeah.
or "I want to get divorced. I'm
Mhm.
jealous that you're getting divorced because I know I won't be getting divorced." And I was like, "Why is this a secret?" And
Mhm.
then I went on a very big journey. I dated half of Manhattan. Um, I definitely learned how to date. I loved dating. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Um, and I don't mean sex. I just mean meeting, like
Right.
experiencing it. And then, I mean sex too, but just experiencing it.
Right.
And I changed careers, and, I'm now looking into these other careers, and I'm like embarrassed that I'm getting out of this career that sounds really great at cocktail party stories. So there's this other secret, right? And then I started trying to have a baby, and while I was dating, I was like, it's hard when you're trying to date and meet someone that you truly connect with rather than looking for a dad. And I really wasn't interested in looking for a dad. I was looking for somebody that I could be with. But I also wanted a baby. I also wanted to be a mom and have a family. And they somehow became a sort of diametrically opposed. And I spent a long time dating, and at 41, I decided to try and start having a baby on my own. I had frozen my eggs. And I spent 4 years on fertility, like almost consecutively, trying to have this child. Yeah, it was a lot. And I did 6 rounds of IVF, 4 rounds of IUI. I overhauled everything. I read dozens of books in every possible way on fertility, different styles of fertility, different styles of health, et cetera, et cetera. I changed my pots and pans because the Teflon is an endocrine disruptor and can really, mess with your hormones. I changed, down to the shower curtain, because the chemicals that are on the plastic shower curtains, it's the same thing. They're an endocrine disruptor.
Wow.
Yeah. There's so many things out there. And I don't want to say this to scare people, because the truth is that all of this stuff helped me have a child, but it also didn't really do much other than give me ways of managing this hard thing, and feeling like I was in control. And, I had a very bad miscarriage, was hemorrhaging for like a week, and had an emergency DNC. I had an emergency abortion. And I thought I was done. And, I wanted to have a child. I was going to move on to adopting, but I always wanted to carry one. And I told everybody that I still wanted to have a child. And all of my friends were terrified of my health. They were really concerned for my mental well-being. I have anxiety, I have low grade level depression. I take medication. I have a therapist. I'm really an advocate of mental health awareness, because I really think that it's just the judgment reframe needs to move. Like, you don't have somebody you don't have somebody who's legally blind and tell them to go drive a car without their glasses. You don't tell someone who's diabetic, you know what, you can get through it without the insulin. So why would you tell somebody who's, who actually who's a highly functioning person that they can be truly themselves in their skin if they do this? That's my little soapbox on that. But so I was done. My family wanted me to be done, everything. And then I spent a week and I couldn't get out of bed. And I was so distraught. And I was like, I just need to do it one more time. And I had already gone through so many iterations. So, I'm a single mom. So I was using a sperm donor. I used a couple different sperm donors. And then I started using an egg donor. And there's a lot of secrets around egg donors that, it's a lot of people do it because women are having babies later. And the physiological reality is that our eggs degrade once we hit 34, 35. Like they decrease, the quality changes. It's just a fact. It's not my opinion. There are plenty of women that have babies in their 40s I'm sure there are people who have babies into their 50s. But it's rare. And statistically, it's like, it goes straight flat and then it drops like a deep hill at 35. Like at 34, it's, I think 17%. And then at 30, what is it? At 35, it goes to 11%, like an 11% chance that you can have a baby. And then by 41, actually, I'm sorry, by 40, it goes down to 11%. By 41, I think it's 7%. It's huge. It's huge. And people lie about it. Like, you see all of the women in Hollywood and they are having babies at late 40s, early 50s. And it's beautiful. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I had my baby at 46, and I love being a mom at this age. It's amazing. but the truth is that I needed these things to be able to have the baby. And I was very ashamed and very, because it's not the image of what you think it is, because it's not well, I want it to be from me. Well, it's from you. Well, I had somebody, didn't know I was doing this, but had somebody whose friend did it with a sperm donor and egg donor. And he goes, I mean, they might as well have just adopted. And it's such a that was such an insensitive thing to say. And the guy too,
Wow.
he was not an asshole. He just doesn't know. But there's I say all of this, there's a lot of judgment around everything. Like every expectation you have in your life, you have attached a judgment to it as well. And it is like being in chains. You are chaining yourself to your judgment. And there is no way of getting out without removing that and having a way to understand in your soul that you can, in fact, have almost anything that you want. It more than likely will not look like what you think it will look like, and it will not feel like that outside to others. It will not be seen perhaps the way they think it should look like, but you can in fact experience it. And that's what I do. I try to help people to understand how to reframe and how to understand that the reframing is releasing you so that you can see the opportunities that are actually in front of you and make those opportunities and give you the feeling that you are seeking. And because that is really where you can be set free, in my opinion. Once you are there, you are set free to tell the truth and be yourself and know what you want.
Yeah. Oh my goddess. Okay. There is so much that I want to respond to. So
that was very long.
No, it's beautiful. You know what? First of all, I'm arranging myself in my chair. But first of all, I love that the more I get to know you, the more I realize that we have so much in common. So I'm a theater child as well. I actually really my dream was like as most actors, right? My dream was to make it to Hollywood and yada yada. And I actually just had a conversation with one of the ladies from the Women Thrive Summit as well recently in the podcast. But I was telling her the funny thing was, like, I actually got to a place in my life and a point in my life where I realized that it was good for myself to allow myself to understand that I also was beyond that. Like, not beyond as in I'm better than acting. No. Like, I love acting still, but my soul was looking for something different, and it was being fulfilled here. It was being fulfilled in the service of the women that I work with. And it was just looking for a different point of expansion. And it's good for us to allow ourselves to transition. And so I love the work that you do. And I think it's so important. When I teach yoga, and when I was teaching yoga, because I still do for fun. But when I teach, one of the things that I always say, I have these moments in time where we'll do what I call transition classes. And so what they are is, instead of focusing on the whole of the posture or the movement from one, because I love vinyasa. So instead of the movement from one pose to the next really quickly or whatever, we'll slow everything down to the point where it's almost painful. Where if you're in down dog, right, moving to plank pose becomes this very slow moving forward. And so every muscle in your body is firing up and you're shaking and you're sweating and you're like, I don't understand why this class is so hard. And so, but one of the reasons I do that is because somatically, there's this beautiful magic that happens when we understand that the moments in time in our lives when we are transitioning in and out of something are the moments in time in our lives where the magic happens. And they're also the moments in time where injury could happen. If you're on your mat, for example, they're also the moments in time, or if you're running or whatever you're doing, but they're also the moments in time where we get to learn more about ourselves than we ever could have thought possible. This space in between is also what in the realm of the divine feminine is considered the pause. And it's considered the pause between the breaths. The in between is the realm of the dark feminine. So I love that you are working in this space because, of course, like, she is all I love.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's so interesting that you're bringing that up because without knowing, you're in this way of serving that essence of the dark feminine energy. And so in that realm, this is where we get to know the true self. The
Mhm.
person that resides within, that doesn't have to lean too deeply into the stories, or
Mhm.
that doesn't just put itself at the effect of the patterns. And so, what I'm hearing as you're telling the story also is like, it's that perfect exemplification, because in the process of allowing yourself to get this, and I say get, but you know what I mean, but get this
It's true.
baby, this
Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah.
child that you wanted, right? In the process of that, the in between, that space is more often than not going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be scary. It is going to be uncertain, and nothing is guaranteed. One of the things that you said that I love, that I bring up in this podcast a lot, is that just because you are working towards something, just because you're manifesting something, just because you're doing the work, just because you're showing up, just because you're listening to your intuition, does not mean that you are guaranteed an outcome. And so,
Right.
tell me a little bit of what that's like with the women that you work with, because
Yeah.
I know how difficult that can be to sit with.
It's funny you say that because the no matter what happens, the first moment of my conversation with any woman that I have is, what do you want? And almost constantly that question is, I don't know. I've been taking care of everybody else. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. And then any conversation after that where we start to get stuck, oftentimes it's like, okay, let's go back to what you want, because we don't know. We want a feeling. We don't, the thing is not the thing. I was an actress. I love acting. I love singing. I love performing. I love the experience of singing. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. I was a heavier kid. I was bullied for it pretty badly. I didn't even realize I was that. I mean, we didn't even call it bullying at that point. We called
Yeah.
it
No.
teasing, and it was kind of like whatever. Um, my childhood up until I got to high school was, it was not. I mean, a lot of people's isn't, but it was rough, and it was not like traumatizing. I had a good family. The family had secrets, of course, and we all have, dysfunctional families. But ultimately, I am blessed because I know my parents loved me, and that piece is very important when you haven't actually been loved as a child. It really does affect you. It's also one of the reasons why I
I can
love what
attest to
you do.
that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why I love what you're doing also, just is because you're really bringing a gateway to self-love, which can help repair the love that you didn't get as a child. And I think it's such a valuable piece to be able to hold. But and so I so if I'm working with somebody that's in this state of like, I don't know what I want. Well, we have to get down to that. We have to work that out. And how do we work that out? Well, you have to do small things. And that's torturous. We're highly ambitious with who are, they are successful, they achieve, and saying like, we're going to do this slow and small is
Mhm.
torturous in the beginning. But that is really the only way that I know to really, as you said, get through the fascia, and get down to the bone, is to really say, okay, let's set an intention for the day. And what does that intention look like? And we're going to go through the day and just keep it in your head, keep it in your body. And then at the end of the day, write it down. I understand that sounds pedantic. I understand that sounds pedestrian and obvious. Do that for 5 days in a row. Do that for 10 days in a row, and you will see the change immediately.
Mhm.
I ran a marathon when I was 39. I ran the New York Marathon. Never run before. I practiced yoga for decades. I love yoga. I never ran. I had two very dear friends that were running, that were big marathon runners. And I was like, this looks really interesting. I want to try it, and I kind of like, I was going to the gym, and I was on a treadmill, and I was like, I think it's, if you can do 6 miles, you can run a marathon. And I was like, all right, well, let's give this a shot. And I did the 6 miles, and I was like, I'm going to run this thing. I don't know why. I genuinely, it was never a goal of mine. It was never like, running is not like a thing. It's not even a thing in my life now. Like, it's fine. I enjoy it, but it's not like makes me feel amazing. It was just like random, but I followed it, I followed it, and it taught me so much. And what it taught me is that I can go far further than I think I can go. And that is really the piece that women have, that is, we know we're strong. We know, I mean, hopefully we know we're strong. We understand that we can do hard things. I mean, I think culturally now, especially these generations, this from Gen X, Gen Z, millennial, now I think it's Gen Alpha is going to be coming at it. Like, women have a place in the world. They saying I work is not like, oh, it's, I mean, now you have what is it, a trad wife?
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like they've gone back to being, and
Right.
listen, you do you, that's not my choice, but if that's your choice, mazel, great. I'm happy for you.
It's still a
Um,
choice though.
but it's a choice. That's right. And it's a choice, and you are living that choice out loud, fully, without secrets. And the secrets are what will kill you. So the combination of doing small things and really telling yourself the truth. And sometimes that's really hard. And it doesn't have to be a big truth, but really getting to the truth of why you are, I mean, unhappy, or why you are taking care of everybody. My why was ultimately, I like taking care of people. I'm absolutely a caretaker, but my why was that I know that if I take care of them, that they will love me. If I'm taking care of them,
Mhm.
they can't give me and there's always a reason for them to love me. And nobody asked me for that. Nobody was like, nobody was one day said to me, if you take care of me, I will love you. That is something that I learned over time. And that is something that I needed to tremendously let go. I still take care of a lot of people. I have a daughter, I'm single, we have a dog. My parents are in their 80s. I definitely take care of them and help them. And I love them. And I don't mind it. It's more than I don't mind it. I'm honored to be able to do it. And it's hard. And I complain about it sometimes. And, they feel bad that, I'm having to do it sometimes, and I get mad. But the truth is, it's also me. But the transition to knowing that it's a choice and not a
Mhm.
requirement for their love, it's the reframing that helps me to
Mm.
live, that I think helps. If you can reframe anything to the feeling you get that you're looking for. I got a little off track. The so if you can reframe to the feeling that you're looking for, you can find that experience in many, many things. So if you love singing, go sing. You don't, if you love being on a stage, be on a stage. If you love um, dating, go date. If you want to have a baby, go have a baby. It didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. The truth is, it was better. I mean, it's an incredible story. I spent 4 years trying to have her. It was very, very hard. I went through a lot. I had changed my career as well. So I was working really hard in financial services. Everybody thought I was wacko. Um, but I like to, as a producer, I like to make things work. I like to put the pieces in the puzzle. I like to pack the trunk as much as I can. And I was able to find what I loved about television and what I loved about producing, and say, this is what I love about that. It's not supporting what I want, which is I want to have a family. I need some stability. I don't want to be going to work at midnight, and I need more money. And I was able to say, but I don't want to be miserable at another job. Like,
Mhm.
that's not a life. I don't want to sit at a desk and just sling papers. What can I do? And through a series of events, I mean, I proactively tried. I was a private event planner for very big, high net worth people. I did experiential marketing and wedding coordinate. Like, I did a lot of trying before I got there. But nobody in the world would think that I would work at a hedge fund or financial services, and I fit in there really well. The personalities are very much mine. And what I do, I run administration and facilities, and I build offices. I work with creative people and I build offices for them. And I enjoy it tremendously. And it taught, so that's what it taught me, is that the feeling, it made me happy. And people would check in. They're like, are you still happy? And I was like, yeah, tremendously. This is supporting my life and giving me what I want to make me to fill that little hole.
Oh, I'm just, I'm loving everything about what you're saying because this is exactly the part of mindful sovereignty that I love the most, that we can lean into, which at the end of the day is you lead yourself to where you feel most expansive, most abundant, most aligned, most alive in your life. This life is so short, and it should not feel like a chore. It should not feel like a task that you have to force yourself to do every single morning. We shouldn't feel like we're surviving. This is something that I thought about a lot when I was leaving my marriage, yes, my toxic marriage, but when I was also in the process and in the way of learning more about the divine feminine, which was I had spent so much of my life not just hating on myself, but really surviving, trying to do the bare minimum of the things that I could do to somehow make it through a day that felt like I was dying with every single breath that went by. And this life isn't for that. This life is meant to be savored. It's got a texture, it's got a palatable way of being experienced. It's got a way of really being lived to the fullest. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that, or we forget that, or we don't remember. And one of the things that you're saying that I just think is so pivotal, and it's such a key point and part of your work, but it's also such a key point of mindful sovereignty. And it's the following: it is that it's the things that you get to shape to your image. It's like we were saying, we did acting, we loved it, it was amazing, we like thrive, we liked it. And then there was a point when we were like, it's not serving me. And I don't think that enough of us give ourselves the space and the capacity to recognize and to say, this is no longer serving me. I will apply this to relationships because I have worked with women who feel like they can't leave relationships because this is just where I'm at now, and this is how it's going to be, and I'm going to have to stay with this person because we said, till death do you part, man, those vows. I have so many thoughts on those vows.
That's the big one. Yeah.
And
I know, tell me about
those dreams. And then it's also when we go pursuing our dreams, because we have a right to go pursue our dreams. Like, I'm going to tell anybody, whatever you want to do, go pursue it.
Yes.
You just understand that sometimes it looks one way one day, and sometimes it changes form, and you can go with that. And like you said, like, who would have ever guessed that you were going to end up in this finance world and you were going to thrive and it's going to be amazing for you? And you never know. But the thing is, you don't know until you let yourself know and explore. So you lead yourself, and you're the one that gets to choose. You can either wallow in self-pity and be miserable, or you can choose better for yourself and say, you know what, okay, I love this, and right now in this direction it's not working the way that it is working. For example, I'll use myself as an example. So I love the work that I do with women, and for a while, because I was taught by other business coaches and everything, that I needed to do like program after program after program. This is what I was doing, and I thought it was the best. And then I realized it was killing me. I was miserable. I was so horribly miserable. And I'm like, I didn't go through all I went through and uprooted my life to end miserable again. So I was like, I'm done. I'm going to focus on doing one-on-one work. I'm going to focus on speaking. I'm going to do my podcast. I'm going to focus on, going on summits. I'm going to focus on where I shine best and where I feel best. And that's what I'm going to lean on, because that's what feeds my soul. And it's okay to say that. And yet what we feel like it's scary, and we don't know how to let go of the clutching. One of the words that you used earlier that I really agree with and resonate with and understand in a different way now is that control part. I think sometimes we believe that we actually have any kind of actual control in our lives and in our world and in this universe, and we don't. And so the second we let go of that, everything changes.
It's a powerful, simple tool. I mean, this is the thing. I am not a simple person. Like, I don't even know how to see something simply. I am neurodiverse. I'm dyslexic. My processing. Oh, nice. See, we're gonna cut a coffee.
I know. We're
very, very similar. I can feel this. I process very differently. I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I go 1, 5, 2, 3. 1.5. I get there. I just get there differently. It now, fortunately, is a superpower. Growing up is very hard, but it's the small things, the small changes are very, very big in this way. And it's funny, you were saying something before. Well, first of all, you use the word, we're taking the lead multiple times. You use that phrase multiple times. And it's the name of my podcast. As you know, She Takes the Lead. And it's why I started it. Like, I was in a a lot of caretaking. You know, my daughter was at a very specific age where you really are having to be there a lot. I was in a job that was very, very stressful, that was too stressful and not allowing me to take care of them. My parents, my father got very, very sick. He was fine, ended up being fine, but we thought he was going to die. And I was taking care of all of it. And I didn't know, I didn't have anything for myself. And everybody was like, you need to have something for yourself. And I was like, yes, in my copious amounts of time, I'm going to have something for myself. Like, I was like, you know, and I'd done the work already. Like, I'd spent, this was, you know, like last year, really, like this was 2 years ago. And I was like, finally just hit a wall. And
Mhm.
and I was like, I'd wanted to do a podcast for a long time. I listened to them when I was, you know, pregnant. And then when I
Yep.
was, you know, like on maternity leave and rolling her around. And yay, thank God I had maternity leave. We need more maternity leave. Um, and I was like, I want to do a podcast. And I kind of just put it away because I had made the decision to now have a baby and be a mom and be a working woman. And I was too busy for it, and it was like frivolous in the scheme of things. And then I hit that wall and I was like, nope, this is not frivolous. I'm a creative person. I say I'm creative and linear. I have a creative and linear way of thinking, because in a room full of creatives, I'm always the linear one, and in a room full of linear people, I'm always the creative one. I'm never like in the middle of it. I'm always on one side or the other, and I don't
Mhm.
mind being in that box when I'm in those rooms, because I bring something to the table and I'm very happy to. But I understand it used to feel very bad. Got it. Yeah. You know, I was like, a room full of creatives. I'm like, I don't have talent. In a room full of, you know, thinkers, that I'm not smart. Like, finally, I was like, no, I'm actually very smart and I'm very creative, and they live together and they balance. I'm a Libra. I'm not even that big in, you know, this in astrological science, but I understand I'm constantly in balance and or not in balance, constantly seeking balance. So just to go back, so I hit this wall, and I was like, I need to start this podcast. It has the performance. I mean, all mentally, it made sense, right? And I started it, and I magically discovered the title, She Takes the Lead. I was putting it out there to one of my best friends, upon the recommendation of a friend, like, ask your friends if they like these titles. And it kind of came to me. I had gone through 10 different titles. And finally, I was like, yeah, this is right. And I went on and I was like, nobody has this. How does nobody have this? And the reality is that, you know, we need to take the lead in our own lives. And because one of the only guarantees in life is that it will end, and that it will go in the directions that you're not expecting. Like, those are the two guarantees of life that I am aware of, is
Mhm.
that eventually it will end. And while you are living it, even if you are just staying in your house or on your block,
Yeah.
things will happen that are not what you expected. And then what do you do?
Mhm. Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
you know, you can't, there's no way to muscle through that. It is the simple act of letting go.
Mhm.
Not so simple, but it is a simple act of letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree. I think there's a beautiful correlation with all the things, right? All the work that you do in transitions and everything. Funny that you love yoga, because there is this space where you learn this.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can avoid this. When you're in that pose and there's nowhere for you to go and your mind is there, you learn that there is the space where you can release and ease off. For me, one of the things that I always say is, I do love the release, the letting go. I think sometimes our brain doesn't know how to understand this. So it's about moving through things, move
Yeah.
through it, and
Yeah.
allow yourself to wait. It's like, it's the example of being in a river. And if the river is going one direction, if you're trying to fight against the current, you're not
Mhm.
going to get there. You're going to tire yourself out. You're going to drown. So you want to go with the current and get
Yeah.
yourself to the other side in order to make it. But I also love, I was thinking about when you were speaking, Um, One of the other things about this whole world that we get to create for ourselves at the end of the day is, and I say this all the time in this podcast, is that we're the ones that are at the helm of things. We're the ones that are doing the choosing. We're the ones with the crowns on our heads. Yet we do have it in us to also be the people that believe that we are at the effect of things. And that's where things get really interesting. Because when you see that, when you really believe that you are at the effect of everything, pause long enough to remember your own power and to remember, it's like you said, it's not about muscling through, but it is about showing up for yourself. I was actually yesterday, we went to watch the new, it's called Superman. It's the story of Christopher Reeve. And
Oh,
it just, oh my goddess. It, by the way, if you have, I rarely do like TV recommendations or anything like that, but like you have to watch this movie. I was in awe because, and I think about this a lot when I watch people who are masterful at something. I don't believe we ever completely master a thing, but I think we're
yes.
in the way of earning that mastery. And so I think about this a lot when I see athletes, when I see people who continuously show up even in the presence of the discomfort, in the presence of the fear, in the presence of the uncertainty, in the presence of days that just feel like shit. And so with Christopher, one of the things that really got to me is like, it's the moment he wakes up and realizes what has happened,
Mm,
and his wife brings him back to center and
mhm.
just lets him know like it's still you, and that decision to keep showing up for the self in
Yeah.
spite of everything. And that's a massive, if we think about it on a physical level, that is a massively impactful thing. Yet in our lives every single day we have moments like this where we
Yes.
could very well choose not to keep living and could very well choose not to keep moving on, and yet we get to choose for ourselves better. And there's such a magic in that, there's such a power in that, because it allows us, I think that that's also the thing about that mastery of the, and the creative, the creation of the transition. Yes, because we get to move from the place where we believed there was nothing else. We get to move beyond that into a realm where things are, the possibilities are endless. You know, the limit does not exist, just to quote another good movie. But it's yeah.
Excellent. No, it's so true. And I'm going to see that. It's actually on my list. I'd only heard about it last night, actually. But his story is extraordinary. I mean, he was an extraordinary person, and his story is truly, it's like, it's in the action. You really like when you see something at work rather than hear us like about it, when you actually watch somebody doing that, it is a profound experience, especially on such an extreme level. And often, and I think a lot of women do this, is that we're kind of, we've had a somewhat normal average, we've all had our hardships, but they're not as bad as something else. And it's like
Mhm.
the low hum trauma. It's like low
Mhm.
hum trauma. It is trauma, but it's a low hum because you're saying, I don't, it was fine compared to X. And I'm not discounting the X. It's terrible and very hard. And it's really, people are suffering, but it discounts your own experience, and it discounts
Yep.
yeah, your own broken heart. It discounts that, and that cuts our knees off no matter what. Like it, and not just to heal, not just to be able to heal that one wound, but it cuts our legs off from everything. Because as soon as you discount that, then you're discounting how much you can be loved, and you're discounting how far you can go with your career and your choices around what you want to learn from your career and what you want to get out of your career, because you're not actually allowing for the whole self to come in together at one time. And I was thinking about this. There's the idea, yes, the yoga analogy is amazing. And it's funny because some people like Pilates, some people like yoga. It's like some weird thing that like it's an either or. And I've always loved yoga. I mean, I'm very bendy flexy, but I'm also like, the spiritual practice of it is amazing. And I don't really meditate that well, but I get on the yoga mat and my body starts moving, and then my mind gets freed. I can't free my mind. I don't know how yet to free my mind without moving my body. That's my knowing my instrument. But it's
Mhm.
funny because the simple idea of letting go and the very complex and intentionally aggressive perspective of taking the lead are literally diametrically opposed in theory.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like they are literally the opposite things. Well, let go. Well, now take the lead. Well, wait, what am I doing? Well, there is a way to let go and then lead. You can
Mm-hmm.
actually forge that path, as you were saying, with intention, with joy, with pleasure. When you are present, when you are in the moment, when you said before, when you are going from down dog to plank, you can hurt yourself, right? You can hurt your arm, you can hurt your elbow, you can hurt your clavicle, whatever. You can pull muscles that won't necessarily come back the way they used to. But if you do it slowly and you see how you do it, you can really find you are in fact taking control
Mm-hmm.
while letting go. And
Yeah.
that is profound. I find like that's where the good stuff is when you can do that. And then over time, I'm sure, especially if you're teaching yoga, you can do it faster. You can do it with more intention. You can then play with it. You can then say,
Mm-hmm.
what is this like if I pick up my leg? What is this like if I move my arm? What is this like if I do a plank pose on my knees? There's like all kinds of things you can play at that point. Once you have the structure built of a safety of where you have built your muscles, where you've built your flexibility, where you've built your mental aptitude to be able to comprehend this in your body, that's when you are free to then navigate it. And people
Mm-hmm.
often think the opposite. They think
Yeah.
that if they hold on tight to that, they're going to get to that. And it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's the wrong
Yeah.
direction. Yeah.
I love that you use the words diametrically opposed because it's this is like my jam. So the world that we exist in, right? It lives in duality. And for me, I've always said this, it's an existence of yes and. As in, yes, this really sucks and I have the capacity to hold it and I can move this way. And this is like going back to one of the other things that you brought up, which is like this whole like how do we do that without how do we lead and then let go at the same time? And it all comes down to non-attachment. So yes,
Yes.
I can show up for myself in my dreams and remain non-attached from the outcome. Yes, I can, for example, plan to run the marathon and remain non-attached from the outcome. I can do all of these things at the same time because we are beings that can hold the capacity of everything
Yes.
within ourselves, and we can move beyond it and we can create within it. And it doesn't mean that we're ever defined by this one and only thing. So I love that you use those words. They're so specific. And in the process of the work that you do with the women that you work with, which is funny, we both work with high achieving women because we
Yeah.
are high achieving
Yeah,
women. Like
yeah.
that.
It's like I am the person I
how else?
needed 15 years ago, basically. That's what I'm doing now. So, which is
No,
good
same
because I can
here.
help because I know what it feels like. But
Yes, no, same here. That's why I do it. That's why I say I work more as a mentor because I've been there. Like the road that
yes,
you're walking through, I've been there and I can do it and I can walk with you again because
yes,
I've done it before and now we can
yes,
do it. So we're like the Yoda
totally. I'm a
of the
nerd
world.
too, by the way. Totally nerd. Totally.
See,
Yes. Star Wars,
so many things
Marvel
in
is my
common.
jam. Yeah. Love
Yes,
it.
me too.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to say, so also in the work that you do with women, tell me what is one of the most common hiccups or one of the most common things that keep people from moving into that transition? And what is
Mhm.
maybe one, sometimes I know it's difficult to, especially for like those of us who are neurodivergent, but like what is maybe one or two or three, right, of your favorite ways to help them move through that transition?
Okay. Yeah. So the first one is you need support. We've talked about this. I call it a tribe. You need your tribe. You need those people, and those people are not necessarily the people that you're with. Is the truth. They're not necessarily your friends because you were a different person than you were a minute ago. Your life can change, and you can change pretty fast. And sometimes it requires you to make more friends or find some kind of support. And that can be scary. Sometimes it requires you to open up to your friends in a way you have never. and trust that it's going to be okay, and trust that if it's not okay, you will move on and move away. So there's a lot of work around being safe with your own experience, and
Mhm.
you being able to be the parent of that, for you being able to say, I do this with my daughter. Um, they're learning how to, she's 5, they're learning how to work with each other. They're learning how to have friends, right? And they're so on the sleeve, like their emotions are just there, and they go, and they're scattered too, like they go from one thing to the next to the next. And I watch her with her friends, right? And sometimes, I can see she's doing something that's making, like, I'm like, that's not really right, and I let her go do it to see what happens. And sometimes I need to correct her. I need to give her that correction. So the mindfulness aspect of it is really about correcting yourself, is about parenting yourself, being your own mom, so that you can gently but firmly correct the behavior. You need to, and that, with a friendship, sometimes that is the way you can be safe in we'll call it a support system rather than friendship. Like that way, if you have that, you always know that no matter what um, um, connected situation you're in, you can pivot. You can address that situation, because that is your instinct and that is how you're working towards. So you're conscious of it. So once that happens, what happens is you share, somebody else feels safe to share. You tell, somebody else feels safe to tell. I am not telling people in an unsafe place or with unsafe people or toxic people or people that you should be sharing your soul with them. That is not safe, and it's not good for you either. And sometimes you have to, be rigid around it and be like, that person makes me feel bad. I've never walked out of a coffee or a dinner or whatever without feeling bad with this person. I still want to be friends with that person though, and I don't really know why. That's fine. Be friends with that person, but you need to protect your environment. So we're going to text for a little while. I don't need to tell them. I don't need to have an out. I don't have to have like a whole emotional thing, because it's not actually about them. It's about me. And it's always focusing on yourself, not in a narcissistic, selfish way. It's actually, that's part of self-care, is that you're actually now focusing on yourself. You're focusing on what you need, your bandwidth for what you can give, and how you can give it. And you need to be able to feel safe around how you are feeling and what you are doing, so you can connect with another person. So sometimes you have that. We have our girlfriends, we have our, and there's usually somebody in there that you can say, like, okay, I'm going to tell you everything now, and let's see what happens. Sometimes not, we talk about this a little bit, like sometimes you really don't feel safe with other women, or other men. Like sometimes you just don't have anybody that you really feel safe with. And I think that it's really critical. So whether that's a therapist, whether that's a 12-step program or something like that, or whether that is proactively looking for authentic connection, which is not like, I'm going to go network or I'm going to go to like a meetup. That's not what that is. Authentic connection is saying, yeah, it's saying it's finding a common ground, and it doesn't have to be a common ground in everything. I have wonderful girlfriends and amazing supports, and some girlfriend I connect with because we're both like just business ambitious. And then, I always joke, it's like I have two besties, right? One who, when I'm down and on my couch, I call it couch time. Like if I'm just blue and on the couch and I can't get up, she will say, we're going for a walk. And one that's saying, you need a nap. And I need both of them. I need both of those people, because sometimes I do need to take a walk and I just want a nap. And sometimes I'm like, I gotta walk and I need a nap. So like finding those people, that is the authentic connection. It's not about like, Yes, it's about like, I love nerding out on Marvel. None of my friends none of my girlfriends that I have love to nerd out on Marvel. Like, that's not the authentic connection I'm talking about. I'm talking about the authentic connection around how you experience it. And the way that you do that is not just by going out and looking for it, it's understanding, what is my authentic connection? What is my emotional wiring that that is going to resonate? And you actually said, it was amazing. Do I need the opposite, or do I need the same to be able to feel supported? Um, During my divorce, I also needed the opposite, because I needed to understand the male perspective on this, and I needed to have some male energy around me so that I could understand. And I was very conscious of not being able to go back to the things that were good about me, because I didn't really know what was good about me when I got divorced. Not because yes, I could tell you what was good about me. I'm a nice person. I'm a kind person, blah, blah, blah. I work hard. But like, in my bones, I didn't really know what I actually did a gig. I was singing jazz at the time, and I did a gig a month after. And I just told myself, I'm going to go there. I've invited all my friends. I've got my little band. It was at a restaurant that a friend owned, so it was safe. And I'm going to sing. And if I can't get anything out, that's okay. If I just literally grab the mic and start to cry and then say, I can't do this, and walk away, that's fine. I'm giving myself the permission to say, you need this. You need to know for yourself that you can get back on the stage. Otherwise, you're never going to get back on the stage ever again, because it's going to become too big. It's going to become too precious. And I did it. And it was actually a really lovely gig, and it was very cathartic. But the permission was really, once I gave myself the permission, I probably didn't even need the gig. Once I gave myself permission to not make a time in the marathon, it was fine. I finished the marathon. Once I gave myself permission to say, I want a child, and I don't have any say in how that happens, my child showed up. And actually, my child showed up the way I wanted, which was in my belly. And I gave birth to her. And she's amazing. And it's funny. She looks like me. She acts like me, for better or worse. And, it's like, that is the piece that I think, and that comes from authentic connection with another human being. And then there are tools, then you have to like figure out how to, like, who you are and what you are. And then you also have to figure out what they need, or what you can offer them, because that is also, the service of it is very important too, because it's not a one-way street. I mean, sometimes it is a little bit of a one-way street, but especially when you're starting that kind of authentic connection, it's not a one-way street. So you need to like have both. It's healthy to have like a push and pull around that. Like, sometimes even if you want to share, it's probably better, if you're desperate to share, it's probably better that you stop and listen. It's better that you stop and listen. You'll share, but it gives you a minute to not, not be so erratic around it.
Yeah, which interestingly enough, all of these things reside in that in-between space, right? This is where you give yourself that pause, that breath. Oh,
Right.
Carole, I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours, but we unfortunately have a time limit. So I'm going to have to start wrapping things up. But before I let you go, the first thing I'll do is I'm just going to ask you, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you, work with you? And yeah.
Amazing. You can find me I'm at carolepodell.com. I am Carole Podell on all the things: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. It's all Carole Podell. You can also find me on my podcast. Tune in. She Takes the Lead. It's on everywhere you get your podcasts. It's there. We talk about everything. We don't just talk to women. We talk to men. We talk about neurodiversity. We talk about sex. We talk about dating. We talk about, I don't know. We talk about passions and failing and winning and all the things. We talk about all the things. You can find me there. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at hello@carolepodell.com. And I am there. So yeah. And I do one-on-one mentoring. I don't use the word mentoring. I use the word strategizing, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love the word strategizing. It makes so much sense for the work that you do and everything that you bring to the table. So it makes perfect sense. And then the last thing that I usually try to ask my guests is, what does being mindfully sovereign in your life look like to you, or what does that mean?
Mm. When I heard the name of your podcast, I had to Google sovereign. I know what sovereign means in my head, but I had to Google it because I was
Mhm.
like, how am I mindfully sovereign? Because sovereignty is like royalty to me. You know what I mean? Like that's what I think
Yeah.
of when I think of sovereignty. Um, but mindfully sovereign to me is sitting with my daughter. I mean, sitting with my daughter, just sitting with my daughter. Like she's not even if she's watching TV, it's it's a lot of it's big shoes to fill, unfortunately for her, but she is the embodiment of my ability to let go and also take the lead, you know.
Beautiful. Oh,
She's
you're
the
gonna make me
embodiment of
cry
it.
at the end of this, but that was perfect.
Mm,
Thank you so much for your time, for being here. I'm gonna have to have you back at some point soon, but thank you.
amazing. Thank you. I love talking to you. I just love what you do and how you do it and how you express yourself. I feel like we're like, we're soulmates on some level, for sure. For sure. For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Agreed, agreed.